Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Talking Facts. I am super excited to bring you guys this one. This was a long time coming. Today, I got to interview Kyle SLOTER. He has a great story, very inspirational guy, and I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I did.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good. All right, so I'm just gonna go through some questions.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question is, what is your earliest football memory?
Earliest football memory for me would probably be, man, I was in kindergarten and I was playing offensive line. And I actually ended up quitting that year just because my mom couldn't take, so I would always come off crying because the helmet would pinch my ears or whatever when I take it off. I don't know why it was a big deal because it's not like a thing at all that people talk about when they play football. It just the helmet would catch my ears or something. It felt like it was pulling them. So I guess at that age I wasn't having it, and yeah, that's kind of my first memory. Probably not a great one, not one that people would attribute to me going on and loving the game, but it's a memory for sure. It was not a good one at the time.
At what point did you think you had a real shot to go to the NFL?
Honestly, so I didn't really think that I had a shot to play in the NFL until it really happened. Honestly, I went to Northern Colorado. Transferred from Southern Mississippi. I was a quarterback in high school and got moved to wide receiver at Southern Miss, and that was part of the reason for my transfer, was so I could get back to playing quarterback. And once I got there, they moved me back to wide receiver, and I was the backup quarterback and played a little bit more receiver my junior year, and then finally had one more year of eligibility and was the backup quarterback again and playing wide receiver, and the starting quarterback went down with a shoulder injury. And I went in there and played really well and kept playing well that year. And I had an agent call me, and my agent told me that, well, a soon-to-be agent, my agent told me that he thought I had a real opportunity to play at the next level. And I'm sitting there like, well, I've played 1 year at FCS and a small school like Northern Colorado, where most quarterbacks that go and play in the NFL, they've played in the SEC for 4 years and have all these accolades and whatnot. So I'm sitting there like, well, I've got this job offer on the table to be a financial advisor, and I kind of thought that would probably be my best route. Like, let's just go, get the real world started and all that good stuff, get a jump on it. Ended up, my agent convinced me to go back to school to do some training, finish up my senior year, and yeah, so I ended up getting a couple calls, and draft day came around. I'm sitting there thinking that there's no way I'm getting picked up or anything like that. I've talked to maybe 3 coaches and haven't heard from them since. And then I think right before day 3 of the draft, I'm sitting there and I get a call from the Washington Redskins telling me that they're going to take me with the first pick of the first round that they had. They had 2 of them at the time. And then got a call from the Broncos. They said they were going to take me with the first pick that they had that day in the 4th round. I think it was the 4th round. Yeah, 4th round. And then, let's see, who was the other team? I think Tampa Bay. It was Tampa Bay that called and said that they were going to take me late if I was still available. And they none of them ended up calling me back or taking me. And, that was kind of hard for me to, get my hopes up and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I kind of realized, before that I had, not much of a shot at making it. So just the exposure and coaches reaching out to me was kind of cool. And Denver called me right after the draft along with 5 other teams. And they told me that they would love for me to come be a part of their team during camp, and that I would, have an opportunity. Each coach kind of pitched to me, and Denver actually offered me the least amount of money, signing bonus wise, to come there. And I thought that that presented the best opportunity with them having Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch, and then not having a third quarterback. They had drafted Chad Kelly that year, but he was going through some sort of wrist injury with a tendon in there, and I kind of felt like that was probably my best opportunity to go there and be the third quarterback as opposed to being the fourth and fifth guy at other places. I could step in and be someone's third quarterback, and honestly, the whole way through, and it served me probably better in the end. Was I didn't really think I just went out there and played with like a free mind, like didn't have a lot on my plate, didn't have a lot of pressure. I was like, you know what, at the end of the day, like every single day that I get to come out here is it's a gift. I should be a financial advisor right now, and I played loose and I played free, and I honestly didn't think that I had a chance of making the NFL until the Vikings gave me a call, and it was all said and done. So I've kind of just been sticking around as long as I can, and I've been trying to do some good things and put good things on film, and each time I go out there, I just try to take the same attitude and try to play free, play loose, and it's served me well so far.
All right, so before we get to your college career, you had some impressive stats in your high school basketball career. Did you ever think that basketball was an option for you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I had an offer to go play at University of Georgia coming out of high school, and basketball is something that my family we'd all done that, and my dad played college basketball. He had an offer to play at Georgia Tech, ended up not taking it back in the day just because they were a pretty stacked team way back then in the 80s. And my mom played college basketball at a Division II school in Iowa, and my younger brother is pretty big into it. So we're a pretty big basketball family, and something that I loved. Basketball is probably my first love, but there's just something about football. There's something about having the ball in my hands every play, being a quarterback, and there's just nothing like it, nothing like the feeling, and of throwing a touchdown or having a successful night and leading your team to a victory. So I kind of decided to pave my own way and do something that nothing had been done in my family before, and that's kind of what led me to football. But basketball is definitely something that I really loved, and wish I was able to do both at this point. I probably lost a little bit of a step in basketball these days, but I would like to think that I could have played at a high level in college.
All right, so going to Southern Miss and learning you're not going to be playing quarterback, how hard was the switch to receiver, and was that a hard decision to make?
Yeah, so it was one that at the time my coaches kind of made for me. So I was a redshirt freshman. They brought in 2 true freshmen and a graduate transfer from California, I believe, University of California. And that was Alan Bridgeford, Nick Mullins, and Parker Adamson. And I showed up for fall camp, and I was immediately the 4th string quarterback. So, I was the only returning guy, and our coaching staff got fired the year before, the coaching staff that brought me in and really liked me. So it was a change that was kind of made for me. I asked them if I could play receiver in the meantime, thinking that if I'm sitting on the sidelines when I know I can be doing something else, then I'm kind of wasting years at this point. So my thinking was that Alan Bridgeford in camp was the starting quarterback, so I was thinking he's got 1 more year, and then I've got 3 more, so I'm just going to go play wide receiver while he plays and graduates and moves on. Well, during that year, Nick Mullins was the backup quarterback, and Alan Bridgeford didn't, they made a change, and Nick Mullins ended up doing okay, and he was a young guy, and they knew that he had time to grow and develop and learn, and decided to stick with him for 4 years. So that kind of kept me at wide receiver, and they told me that I wasn't gonna be able to make the move back to quarterback, so they kept me there. And it was a change that was definitely difficult, It was one that, a lot of those receivers, they don't get enough credit for, the things that they have to do, like being able to stop on a dime or make cuts, running full speed, making catches in traffic. And, being a quarterback my whole life and, being somewhat athletic, I kind of went into it pretty naive thinking that, I was going to be able to, it was going to be a seamless transition. Well, there's just a lot of different things, the different body positions that you have to put yourself in to be successful. Like I said, catching the ball in traffic, I feel like I can catch with the best of them out in the front yard when I'm not moving. But, as soon as you're running full speed and you got, world-class defensive backs covering you and all that kind of stuff, it adds an element of difficulty. So, it was something that took me a while. I felt like I had really good hands, but, something that I probably could have been better at was the route running, and that was something that came with time. Was able to, go from third on the depth chart to eventually starting a couple games at Southern Miss and making a few catches and a touchdown. And, I really think that playing receiver is something that helped me, become a better quarterback, because as a receiver, you kind of know where you want the ball, where you want it thrown so you don't get blown up. And, I kind of got to see the flip side of, playing quarterback, like, what happens after I throw the ball. So I got a little exposure to that side of playing football, and I feel like it really helped me a lot. But, definitely a quarterback. I don't know that I could go back and make that switch again, especially not at this level.
So how hard was the decision to transfer to Northern Colorado for you?
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. So my coach, for one reason or another, I'll never really understand the reasoning behind it, but I was going into my redshirt junior year, so basically a senior in the classroom, and only had 3 hours left before I graduated, and I would have graduated like a year early or something like that. And he brought me in and told me that I wasn't good enough to help them anymore, that they were switching the offense, and the bigger receiver body that I was, they were taking that away, and they were just going with tight ends. They wanted to find some tight ends. We didn't have any true tight ends in the system. So he said that they were taking my scholarship in order to go and get some tight ends from JUCO, from high school, and that I wasn't good enough to help them anymore. And, that was something that was tough, but ultimately made me what I am. I'm somebody that, if you tell me that I can't do this or I can't do that, then, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and prove you wrong. So that was something that kind of fueled my fire. And, I would be lying if I didn't say that, there was probably a day or two where I was like, well, I should probably just get my degree and get on with my life. And, once that kind of subsided, there was a fire in me that, I wanted to continue to play football. So it wasn't necessarily a choice that I made as much as it was made for me. But yeah, definitely difficult anytime that I grew up with those guys. You go from being a 18-year-old kid into a 21, 22-year-old man, and you grow up with those guys, and it's really tough to leave your teammates anytime you have to go. Still to this day, I've done it a lot in the NFL. It's always tough to leave friendships and bonds that you make, and a place that you're comfortable, and it's always a little nerve-wracking to go to a new place and new surroundings and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I kind of wanted to prove to myself, prove to all the people that did believe in me, and then prove all the people that said I couldn't do something. I wanted to prove them wrong. So it was a decision that was kind of made for me, but I went out there and I tried to have a good attitude about it. Anytime it's still obviously Division I football, and it's good football, but anytime, we're all prideful. Anytime you go from, Division I football, it wasn't Power 5, obviously, but, still good competition. Anytime you go from Division I to FCS, it's, it takes a little piece of you. We're all competitors, and, part of me was like, I'm too good to be here, but at the same time, I was like, you know what, obviously I'm not. I guess I haven't done something right. So, it was definitely a tough transition, but ended up loving the school, loving my coaches, loving the teammates and friends that I made. It was a good situation for me. So I really, at the end of the day, I would do it all again.
So during your junior year at Northern Colorado, did you start to lose hope of playing quarterback again, and how did you overcome those thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. That really set in. Pretty much. I would say that set in for the first time at Southern Miss once Nick Mullins did really well at playing there, and then you transfer thinking, hey, I'm going to be a quarterback again. They get me there and immediately make me a receiver, and then I'm like, man, like this may not happen. So I would say that almost immediately after they moved me back to wide receiver, that's kind of when I started to think that this quarterback thing's not really meant to be. And went through my junior year, and it was tough, man. It takes a lot out of you. You sit there and you think about it. You put your whole life. I've been playing football since I was 5 years old. At that point, I was 22 years old. So I've been playing football for 17 years, and you put your whole life towards a goal and something that means something to you, is important to you. And after that junior year, after not having accomplished much and definitely not having been a quarterback, I remember after that final game, like just going to my car, man, and I cried. Like it was tough. It was emotional. You move halfway across the country to a different place, and I sat there and I was like, I just wasted a whole year that I could have been doing anything. I could have been doing anything other than working hard, putting the time in, and not having it pay off. And it was really difficult. And it was at that point I was close to graduating again from Northern Colorado, and I thought, like, I'm just going to do this internship, take these last couple classes, and I'm good. I'm gonna call my coach after spring semester and be like, hey, I'm not coming back. I'm done. Like, I've had enough. And I got to that point, like I said, in the summer when I was supposed to be going back up there for fall camp. And I got really close to telling my coach, like, hey, I'm not coming back. But like, again, I had that feeling like you've been through 4 years of disappointment, and it's. You don't want to finish this last year on the wrong note. This might be the last time you ever play football, and it definitely will be if you quit. So, it was one of those things, again, that I just had to kind of pick myself up and, tell myself, I'm not a quitter. I never have been. I'm going to finish what I start. And, I didn't end up making that phone call to my coach. I came back. They made me the backup quarterback while also playing receiver. And, like I said earlier, the starting quarterback got hurt on the first play of our season, and I went in there and threw 7 touchdowns my first game, and just kind of rolled with it from there. Things just kind of took a life of its own, and it really came from perseverance and not giving up and working hard. So I tell people all the time that sometimes you do things that you don't always see. Everybody wants everything so quickly. Like, we're all human, and the things that we work hard for, we want to see results, and sometimes that might take years, it might take decades. But really sticking with something that you believe in, can really change your life. I was close to being done at multiple points, and my life would be a lot different right now, and I'm happy that I stuck with it for sure, because I'm living my dream, and that's really the only reason for it, is just perseverance.
All right, so you mentioned your 7 touchdown game.
Yeah.
The next week, when you threw for 438 and 6 touchdowns against Cal Poly, how had your mindset changed from being a receiver to now being the quarterback?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I don't know at what point it changed, but like, you still feel like you go through three and a half years of playing receiver, and you're thinking to yourself, like, you got to change your mindset. Every position that you play, like, now I'm a receiver, I'm like, okay, I'm an athlete. Like, I've got to think like an athlete. I've got to move around and carry myself that way. And then all of a sudden you make a switch, and I'm wearing my receiver gloves. We were playing Abilene Christian in Texas that first game. I was wearing my receiver gloves, had a visor, had the towel hanging out the back, had a sleeve on, like all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, if I knew I was playing quarterback today, I probably would have dressed a little bit more appropriately. But it's kind of funny. I don't know that switch in my mind took place until after the season, when I had a lot of time to think about it. During my college career, I was just kind of out there trying to pick up everything on the fly. And, I've always had a good knack for seeing things. I think my vision is something that, has served me well. I think that's one of my better talents, being able to see things come open, and see things before they come open. So I think that really helped me, but I don't know that I made the switch in my mind. I obviously started studying more and more like a quarterback, trying to pick up on different things that the defense was doing each week. But, I still kind of had that athlete mindset and run around, make plays, that kind of stuff. And, it served me well back then. I tried to, obviously I think of myself as a quarterback now. But, every single time I go out there and I play, I'm still, I remind myself, like, one of the things that you do well is you move around, you run, you make things happen when things aren't there. You see things well. So, I think there's things that I take from both sides of it. Definitely think of myself as a quarterback, but still try to keep a little bit of that athlete mindset when I'm out there playing the game.
All right, so now moving to the NFL, in your preseason game with Denver, where you threw for 413 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you posted the highest passer rating of any rookie quarterback ever, did it come as a shock that the Broncos let you go?
Yeah, it did. I got a call from my quarterback coach, Bill Musgrave. I think we either played Thursday or Friday, and I got a call on Tuesday. So Paxton Lynch got hurt in preseason the week before. They kind of diagnosed him with an AC shoulder sprain and said that he would be out for 6 weeks or so. And so they had mentioned, probably 2 weeks before then, Coach Vance Joseph came out and said that, we're only keeping 2 quarterbacks. Like, he said that before preseason and camp was like up, and I was had a great OTAs, had a great training camp where practices were awesome. I was leading all the quarterbacks in completion percentage in practice, and I was doing great things, and really felt like a leader of that team, which is kind of crazy to think about because I was an undrafted rookie free agent, and people kind of started to notice that I had a command of the huddle and was doing well in practice, and I really started to feel like I was a leader. Had guys like Von Miller, kind of gained their respect. Emmanuel Sanders told me that I'd had the best preseason that he'd seen from any rookie ever, which, coming from a guy that, is an incredible talent and has been for a long time, like I took that compliment seriously. And, they called me. So to get back to what I was saying, on Tuesday before our final preseason game, I was starting it and I was supposed to finish it. Trevor Siemian was going to be, kind of waiting in the wings in case, because he was named the starter. He was kind of waiting in the wings in case like something happened to me. He would just go out there and hand the ball off. We'd get out of the 4th preseason game and call it good. So then my coach on Tuesday called me and told me that I made the team. He said, hey, just wanted to let you know, like, you're our backup. Don't go out there and do anything crazy. Don't, play, don't play like a wild man. Don't go out there and get hurt because, like, you made the team. Like, we need you on the team. So, I'm excited. Call my parents, let them know. It was an emotional time for me, and go from everything that I just told you to making an NFL team. It was incredible, and I went out there and played loose and played well again in the 4th preseason game and did really well, and cuts come around, and I was the last guy cut, and it didn't sound like at the time that it was talked about with the other coaches. It kind of sounded like John Elway made a decision, made an executive decision to release me and go get Brock Osweiler. I went down to talk to my offensive coordinator, who was Mike McCoy, I believe, at the time, and I think he was kind of shocked that they let me go. He wasn't expecting to see me, and at that time I started fielding calls from other teams that wanted me, and the Vikings came along and they put their money where their mouth was, and they really wanted me, and that's kind of how that whole thing went down. I wanted to stay in Denver at the time, but they weren't willing to give me the things that Minnesota was giving me, and I felt like they wanted me a lot more. And at the end of the day, it's all about who wants you more. You want to go where you're wanted, and that's how you stick around in the league, is guys wanting you. So I went with Minnesota, and it was tough. But yeah, definitely very surprised. I was the last guy. I was sitting there in my hotel room thinking that I was free and clear, and didn't want to announce anything officially. Only my parents knew, but I felt pretty good about it. And then they called me in, and I was pretty shocked.
So, after some impressive preseasons in Minnesota, you were also let go from Minnesota. How hard is it to get cut and keep moving forward?
Yeah, it's very tough. I'd be lying if I said that, right now, one of the motivations for me going back to Detroit was to beat them. I saw that Minnesota and Denver were both on the schedule coming up, and, I didn't really care if I had 5 days of preparation in the offense, which I think that's what it amounted to before we played Minnesota. I'm competitive, man. I've got a different mentality when I go out there, and I'm coming for the jugular every time. I wanted to beat them, man, and it was kind of, I was a little antsy over there on the sideline, thinking, if something happens to David Blau, then I'm in here and I'm ready to go. I was itching to get out there. They were kind of, Denver and Minnesota, I think, until I'm able to get out there and beat them, that they're going to be pretty high on my hit list. But no, it's the nature of the business. At the end of the day, I make myself have hard feelings, so I keep a chip on my shoulder. But at the end of the day, I understand that that's the business. Every single year there's young quarterbacks, old quarterbacks. People get cut. I mean, there's very, very few people in the NFL, and a lot of people don't realize it. There's very few people in the NFL that go out on their own terms. There's not many that, Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is an all-time great, and, he wasn't cut or anything, but, it just didn't work out. At a certain point, the game is going to leave you, so it's the business. I understood, where they were coming from, and it is what it is. And you, at that point, it is hard to move on. It's hard to, sit there and question, why me? I did everything right. I had 3 great preseasons. I really felt like nobody in the last 3 years has played better than me in preseason. I feel like I am at the top when you talk about that. And yeah, I understand it's preseason and blah, blah, blah. It's not against the ones and all that kind of stuff. But, I'm not playing with the ones either. I'm playing with, the guys around me. So it's all relative. But I felt like, for the last 3 years, I've been at the top of the game when it comes to the first 4 games of the season, which are the preseason. And, yeah, it was a little bit disappointing. I was in contract extension talks with Minnesota, and all of a sudden those kind of fell through, and it went from, okay, you're, a viable option for the future of this franchise to, we're just releasing you for nothing. So, it was a big moment for me. And I think that, the story's not over yet. And, hopefully 3-4 years down the road, I'm able to sit here and tell you again that, that moment shaped me to be a great quarterback because it's pushed me even harder. It's, fueled me even more. And it's something that that feeling of being cut, it's not a good one, but it's something that I kind of store inside me. And it's something that wakes me up in the morning and gets me out of bed and gets me out there, first one in the building, last one to leave, work hard in between, lift, practice, study, all that kind of stuff. It just pushes me harder and harder. And, I'm hoping that one day, like I said, I can come back and be on another podcast years and tell you that was a big moment for me, and that, the Vikings releasing me was something that made me into one of the all-time great quarterbacks.
All right, so the last question is, what are your goals for the future of your career?
Yeah. So to me, like, it's never really changed. It's, I've told people this before and they laugh, but, I think that if you don't believe it, if you don't believe that it can happen, and if you're not striving for it, then you shouldn't even be in the NFL. My goal is I want to first win a Super Bowl with, me being the starter and help my team. But my individual goal is I want to be the greatest quarterback of all time. And I think I can do it. And, I think that the moment that I don't believe that statement is the moment that I probably shouldn't play football anymore. Because that's kind of something that, has driven me every single day. And I believe it wholeheartedly. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm better than Tom Brady right now. Like, I know that that's, he's the best to ever do it. He's the guy that I'm gunning for. But, if somebody's going to ask me, like, who are you going to take, yourself or Tom Brady? Like, I'm going to choose me every time. Like, that's not no disrespect to him or anybody else. Like, I just believe in myself that much. And I think that if you don't have that belief, that you're doing the wrong thing for a living, because this is what we do is way too competitive. It takes way too much heart, way too much determination and desire and, passion to, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't think you're that guy, then you shouldn't be. So I firmly believe that if I'm given the opportunity, which unfortunately to this point in my career, I don't feel like I've been given a fair opportunity. I feel like I've earned things that haven't been given. But, that's obviously not for me to decide. That's for me to, take those lumps, take those punches and keep rolling, keep getting better. And hopefully one day somebody gives me that opportunity that, I feel like I've been waiting for, one that I feel like I deserve. But, I just got to, like I said, keep working hard, keep my head down, and, those things will come. But definitely, I believe in myself that much, and, that's my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal for my career is to look back and say I'm the best.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Good stuff, man. Thanks for having me on. Yes, sir. Take it easy.
All right, you too.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.